How does a man in his 20s known for his kindness and loving nature end up becoming one of the biggest cyber drug barons the world has ever seen? In just 2 years, from 2011 to 2013, Ross Ulbricht managed to create the biggest cyber drug empire the world has ever seen. Under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, he built Silk Road, a sprawling online marketplace where users could buy and sell drugs and other illegal goods anonymously. What began as a libertarian experiment in free markets and personal freedom rapidly grew into a multi-million-dollar operation, attracting the attention of both customers and law enforcement agencies worldwide, and eventually leading to his downfall. But what was Silk Road, and how did it all work? Silk Road was launched at the end of January 2011, and quickly became one of the first successful crypto markets on the dark web, eventually reigning as the top platform until its closure. Much like any reputable black market, Silk Road offered a variety of illegal goods and services. These range from drugs and weapons to hacking services, counterfeit documents, and even stolen goods, jewelry, art, and cigarettes. Transactions were kept completely anonymous thanks to Bitcoin and the Tor network. However, items such as stolen credit cards, fake diplomas, hitman services, and child were prohibited. In 2012, a year after its launch, weapons were also banned from the site. Silk Road functioned similarly to platforms like Amazon, eBay, or even Craigslist, facilitating connections between buyers and sellers while taking a commission of 3 to 12% per transaction. A significant part of its success stemmed from its professionalism, such as implementing an escrow system for Bitcoin transactions and quickly arbitrating disputes. The site featured promotional products, special offers, free shipping on orders over a certain amount, high-definition photos of products, user profiles, an internal messaging system, a shopping cart, customer reviews, seller ratings, and a very active forum. Essentially, it resembled a conventional e-commerce site, which was quite uncommon on the dark web at the time, earning it the nickname the eBay of drugs. The mastermind behind Silk Road? A 31-year-old named Ross William Ulbricht, though at the time he was only known by the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, a nod to the character from the 1973 novel The Princess Bride, which was adapted into a film in 1987. In The Princess Bride, Dread Pirate Roberts is an outlaw hero, a masked Robin Hood-like figure who protects the weak. The unique aspects of this character is that the costume and role are passed down through generations of volunteers, each taking on the persona and responsibilities of the masked hero. This clever reference led authorities to believe for a long time that multiple people were operating under the DPR name. Ross encouraged this belief, particularly in an interview with Forbes magazine on August 14, 2023, where he claimed to be the successor to the founder of the Silk Road. In his everyday life, Ross William Ulbricht was far from the outlaw image. Born in 1984 in Texas to a well-to-do family, he joined the Boy Scouts during his childhood and spent 10 years in the organization, earning the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank in the Boy Scouts at 17. Ross grew into a model and brilliant young man, earning a scholarship to the University of Texas at Dallas, where he specialized in physics. A notable point is that Ross maintained a personal journal, meticulously documenting his hopes, dreams, and objectives, as well as his daily activities, including those illicit actions that would ultimately lead to his downfall. It was during this period that he encountered the world of drugs, experimenting with various psychedelics while immersing himself in Eastern philosophy. He graduated in 2006 and received another scholarship for graduate studies at Penn State University, where he excelled once again. Despite being on the path to a promising scientific career, Ross chose to abandon it after earning his master's degree with a brilliant thesis in May 2009. At this point in his life, he expressed disillusionment with science and a newfound interest in economics. He discovered the works of Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises, a proponent of libertarianism, advocating for a society where economic freedom equates to moral freedom, and commercial and financial flow occur without government regulation. In mid-2009, he returned to Texas and took on various odd jobs. He tried online trading, sold insurance for 3 months, did some video editing, corrected typographical revisions, and even attempted to develop a video game, although this project quickly failed. Fortunately, a neighbor invited Ross to work at his new small business called Good Wagon Books, which collected used books to resell on platforms like Amazon. Ross accepted and took on the role of building the website, managing inventory, and creating a custom script to determine book prices based on their Amazon ranking. During his online explorations, Ross discovered Bitcoin, a digital cryptocurrency whose value was solely determined by market factors, independent of any central bank. This concept resonated perfectly with his libertarian philosophy. an idea began to form to create a website where people could buy anything anonymously and untraceably using Bitcoin and a few other tools. Like many libertarians, Ross believed that drug consumption was a personal choice. He also observed that various drug wars were complete failures, causing more harm than good. In his view, as long as there was demand, trafficking would continue. So, someone might as well offer a peaceful and secure trafficking system. Thus, the primary merchandise of his future site would be drugs. He began programming his website gradually while continuing to work at Good Wagon Books. By the end of 2010, his neighbor moved to Dallas, leaving Ross in charge of the company with a 50% ownership stake and a monthly salary of $3,000. In the Good Wagon Books warehouse, Ross supervised 5 part-time students who sorted, recorded, and organized 50,000 books on shelves he had built himself. Everything seemed to be going well until an accident occurred in early January 2011. In the middle of the night, all the shelves collapsed like dominoes, destroying the warehouse interior and a significant portion of the books. According to his journal, Ross had been losing interest in the business for some time. This incident only reinforced his disinterest, pushing him further towards the development of his new project, Silk Road. His thoughts increasingly focused on his future site. The sudden destruction of his warehouse solidified his decision to close the business, with his partner's agreement allowing him to dedicate himself entirely to his new project. He programmed the site on his own, teaching himself to code using tutorials and coding software. Driven by the failure of his previous ventures, Ross was determined to make Silk Road a global success. By the end of January 2011, the Silk Road crypto market, initially specializing in drug sales, went live on the dark web. During this time, Ross cultivated hallucinogenic mushrooms and listed them as the very first item on his site. Within days, the first sale occurred, followed by exponential growth in transactions. It didn't take long for enough suppliers and users to make Silk Road a thriving marketplace. In July 2011, Silk Road experienced a surge in growth after an article on Gawker Media caught public attention. From that day on, traffic increased so rapidly that Ross needed technical support to maintain the site, manage transactions, and add features like automated payments. He proceeded with several remote recruitments, hiring notably an active forum user named Chronic Pain. This was Curtis Green, a 47-year-old father from Utah who had chosen the name due to his own chronic pain condition. With DPR's approval, Green had voluntarily created a health and wellness forum where he advised users on the safest way to take opiates, based on his own experience with these substances due to his disability. Ross recruited him and tasked him with managing customer service, including resolving sale disputes, for a monthly salary of $3,000. As a show of loyalty, DPR required a scan of his driver's license from each of his employees, though he himself remained a complete mystery to them. The Gawker article, widely circulated in June 2011, also attracted the ire of Senator Charles Schumer, who urged authorities to do everything possible to shut down the site. In January 2012, a year after Silk Road's launch, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security formed a task force to combat the site. Agents from the DEA, Secret Service, and U.S. Postal Inspection Service volunteered. The group based in Baltimore quickly launched Operation Marco Polo, named after the explorer who famously used the Silk Road. At this point, Silk Road had evolved beyond mere contraband and become a movement. Ross even created a book club on the forum, with texts considered sacred, including those by the Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises. He even spoke of a near future where current governments would seem like ancient history, akin to the pharaohs and their armies of slaves. Silk Road's followers quickly began to liken Ross to Che Guevara, calling him a job creator and declaring that his name would live among the greatest men in history. In April 2012, Special Agent Karl Mark Force IV of the DEA, part of Operation Marco Polo, created a seller profile on Silk Road and constructed a false identity. He fabricated a whole backstory and persona, posing as Eldo Guzman, a cartel leader based in the Dominican Republic, managing a stockpile of heroin and cocaine, and navigating the dark web under the pseudonym Knob. He then contacted DPR via private message, proposing to buy the site to elicit a response. The next day, Ross replied, expressing openness to the idea and asking what Knob had in mind. After 2 weeks of exchanges, Ross ultimately refused, suggesting an exorbitant price of $1 billion. What Ross didn't know was that his enterprise would indeed be worth that amount by 2013, making him one of the most significant entrepreneurs of the second internet boom. Knob maintained contact with DPR for months through the encrypted messaging service TorChat. They discussed, among other things, creating a parallel site for cartels, a sort of professional version he would call Masters of Silk Road. Though this never came to fruition. Over time, a camaraderie developed between them, which was exactly what the DEA agent intended. He engaged Ross in conversations about everything and nothing, gradually uncovering his personality and libertarian ideology. In early December 2012, Knob complained to DPR about not being able to find a buyer with enough funds to purchase a kilogram of cocaine. Ross then forwarded this request to one of his most fervent administrators, Chronic Pain, who was in charge of customer service of the site. Chronic Pain foolishly provided his personal address, offering to use his own home as a storage location. This was a dream scenario for the members of Operation Marco Polo. They sent $27,000 worth of cocaine to Chronic Pain's address. Moments after he opened the package, the SWAT team and DEA agents stormed the house, arresting him. Special Agent Carl Mark Force IV, the notorious Knob, was present, as was his colleague, Sean Bridges, a Secret Service agent. Bridges took advantage of their access to administrator accounts to seize $350,000 in Bitcoin from various members' wallets. During his interrogation, Chronic Pain pleaded with the agents not to make his name public, fearing it would be a death sentence for him. The agents ignored Chronic Pain's pleas and proceeded with the trial. Ross noticed the sudden absence of his administrator and the theft of bitcoins that occurred simultaneously, quickly connecting the dots. A simple Google search led him to an article revealing Chronic Pain's arrest for cocaine possession. A few days later, Chronic Pain was released on bail and returned home. DPR then asked Knob to send some men to torture Chronic Pain and force him to return the stolen money. On February 21, 2013, Carl staged Chronic Pain's torture in a hotel room with his colleague Sean Bridges and a Baltimore postal inspector. They pretended to drown him multiple times in a bathtub, recording the ordeal to send to Ross. During this time, DPR was discussing the situation with his mentor and advisor known as Simon, or by his pseudonym, Variety Jones. Simon had been helping Ross manage Silk Road's finances, coding, security, and administration. When the topic of the stolen Bitcoin came up in their conversation, Simon encouraged DPR to use force to set an example, implying that Chronic Pain should be killed. A few hours later, before Knob could send the video, DPR contacted him again, this time offering $80,000 to kill Chronic Pain, fearing that he might disclose everything to the authorities. Like many revolutionaries before him, the idealist had become a pragmatist, willing to kill for his beloved vision, believing the success of his project was more important than a single life. Carl's team then faked Chronic Pain's murder, forcing him to simulate his own death and send the evidence to DPR. Ross didn't recover the stolen bitcoins, but sent the promised $80,000 to Knob's Bitcoin wallet. In the second quarter of 2013, Silk Road's growing popularity attracted more and more black hat hackers, eager to challenge its defenses. These hackers had figured out how to launch denial of service attacks on Silk Road, forcing Ross to pay them $50,000 per week to stop the cyber attacks. On May 3, 2013, some hackers managed to crash the site for a week. Many users wondered if this attack had been orchestrated by one of the new competing crypto markets, as rivals on the dark web were known to be ruthless. In June 2013, at the FBI headquarters, Special Agent Christopher Tarbell discovered a flaw in the configuration of Silk Road's homepage that he could exploit. Tarbell was an expert in computer forensics at the FBI, and had recently been put in charge of Cyber Squad 2, the team investigating Silk Road. Ross Ulbricht was making a whole lot of money, but he was doing it in a very devious way. One legal way to make money is investing in stocks. And what's better to start investing than with Moomoo, the sponsor of today's video. Moomoo is offering up to 15 free stocks just for signing up and making a deposit. Not only that, but they're also giving users 8.1% yearly returns on cash they hold in their accounts. 8.1% APY is pretty unheard of, and it's definitely a safe way to have your money work for you without taking risk in the market. Moomoo lets you trade stocks, ETFs, and options with zero commission. Unlike Webull, Moomoo's trailing stop orders support not only stocks, but also options. Moomoo's parent company is publicly traded and actually is up 67% over the last year. Moomoo lets you invest in many different markets around the world and offers a 6.8 margin rate. They aren't going to be handing out 15 free stocks for that long, so make sure you click the link in the description to get them all you can. There were multiple agents working on the case, but not all of them were coordinating with each other. Tarbell had previously made a name for himself in June 2011 by uncovering and arresting Hector Xavier Monseguer, better known as the pseudonym Sabu. Sabu was the most wanted member of Anonymous, primarily because he co-founded and led Lulzsec, a highly political and active hacker group that had breached major corporations like Sony and Nintendo, as well as various American media sites and a security firm associated with the FBI. Back in June 2013, during his research, Tarbell stumbled upon a Reddit post where a user warned others about a misconfiguration on Silk Road that caused the site's IP address to leak. This meant the address wasn't as well hidden by Tor's numerous layers as it should have been. Tor, the anonymized network of servers around the world, is designed to obscure the path of data. DPR had been warned about the problem, but had ignored the warning. Silk Road's success seemed to have made him arrogant, and this growing vanity became a weakness. He had let his guard down, confidently assuring his colleagues that the server would never be found. Tarbell and his team quickly set out to verify this, then entered various usernames with incorrect passwords, injected data into input fields, and used an old free software to analyze network traffic and gather IP addresses communicating with their machine. On June 5th, 2013, after hours of examining IP addresses, Tarbell paused at one in particular, 133.176.49. This IP address, transmitted by Silk Road servers to validate the connection, didn't correspond to any known relays. Tarbell then entered this IP address into a standard web browser, hit enter, and the Silk Road login page appeared, causing his team to erupt in joy. This was proof they had found the real IP address of the server used for Silk Road. It appeared that Ross had failed to strictly follow the meticulous procedures required to completely mask the data flow of his crypto market on the dark net. His self-taught programming had its limitations. Exploiting this flaw made it easy to trace and locate the server associated with this IP address, which belonged to a hosting provider in Iceland called Thor Data Center. On July 21st, 2013, Tarbell traveled to Iceland to request judicial assistance. Investigators from the Reykjavik police visited the Thor data center to retrieve the server in question. Upon analysis, they discovered that it handled large volumes of encrypted traffic via Tor. They seized the server's history and entire contents to send to the FBI. The analysis revealed that the DPR account received over 3,000 transactions per day, totaling $19,500, which amounted to an annual income of $7 million. By examining this data, the investigators could see all the private messages and all the computers that had recently communicated with Silk Road. Cyber Squad 2 reviewed the traffic recorded on port 22, corresponding to the encrypted connections administrators used. They found several IP addresses leading to a backup server near Philadelphia, a proxy server hosted in France, and a VPN in Romania. The most recent connection to the Silk Road VPN was an IP address belonging to a cyber cafe named Cafe Luna in San Francisco. Tarbell discovered from reading DPR's private messages that he had not only ordered the murder of Chronic Pain, but also another user known as Friendly Chemist, who had threatened to expose the identities of thousands of users. On March 31st, 2013, a user named Red and White had offered to handle the problem for $300,000. Having only paid Knob $80,000 previously, Ross agreed to a deal for $150,000, equivalent to 1,655 bitcoins at the time. The next day, Red and White informed DPR that the contract had been executed, and also revealed that the target was working with another user, known on Silk Road as Tony76, a notorious scammer on the platform. Ross didn't hesitate to add Tony76 to the hit list, along with his 3 roommates suspecting their involvement. But it was later revealed in 2015 that Red and White was part of a scheme with Friendly Chemist and Tony76. These 3 had devised a plan to extort money from Ross by threatening him and then faking their deaths. On July 11, 2013, a Homeland Security Investigations agent named Jared Duryehagen arrested a Silk Road forum moderator known as Cirrus and persuaded her to cooperate. She then became more active on Silk Road, quickly rising from a simple moderator to an administrator and gaining access to the staff chat created by Ross. Jared Duryehagen had first become aware of Silk Road a few months earlier by intercepting several packages of prescription drugs at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport Customs, which prompted him to investigate further. On July 26, 2013, agents from Homeland Security knocked on the door of Ross William Ulbricht, who was living in San Francisco with his 2 roommates. They presented him with 9 fake IDs, each bearing his photo, but with different names and addresses. A few days earlier, Customs had intercepted a package from Canada addressed to Ross and handed it over to the authorities. Ross played innocent, answering only a few questions, which allowed him to avoid immediate arrest. The authorities didn't have enough evidence to detain him at that moment. Before the agents left, Ross pointed out that anyone could have sent him drugs or fake IDs via Silk Road, which surprised the agents because they hadn't come to talk about the website. which they were unaware of. In reality, Ross had ordered the fake IDs to rent additional servers to handle the continuous growth and security challenges of Silk Road. Frightened by the visit, Ross soon moved to another shared apartment in the Glen Park neighborhood of San Francisco. After hearing of this incident, Tarbell called Agent Jared and invited him to work with his team in New York. On the same day, an IRS agent named Gary Alford would call Tarbell to share what he had found about Silk Road a few months prior. Gary deduced that whoever had launched Silk Road had tried to promote it on visible websites with audience sharing similar libertarian views. In fact, during the summer of 2013, Gary Alford conducted a simple Google search about Silk Road and found a mention about the website on a forum named shroomery.org. A single post from January 27, 2011, just a few days after Silk Road's launch, a user named Altoid discussed a news site that allowed buying and selling anything online anonymously. By searching the pseudonym Altoid on Google, Gary found another post under that name on Stack Overflow, dated March 16, 2013. Where Altoid sought advice on connecting to a Tor hidden service using PHP. The most significant discovery, however, was a post from October 2011 on a Bitcoin forum where Altoid tried to recruit Bitcoin professionals for his site. To contact him, he provided his email address, rossolbricht@gmail.com. Gary Alford had shared this finding with his agency, but they didn't deem it worthy of pursuing. Unlike Tarbell, who saw its potential immediately. Tarbell asked Jared to search through federal databases, leading them to the Homeland Security's report on Ross's fake IDs. A quick search of Ross's last known address revealed that he lived half a block from a cyber cafe named Cafe Luna. This was the location of the last known connection to the Silk Road VPN that Tarbell and his team had traced after returning from Iceland. This connection helped piece together all their information, finally identifying Ross Ulbricht as Dread Pirate Roberts. By typing Ross Ulbricht into Google, they found his Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus profiles, and even his YouTube channel, where he shared the same ideology as Dread Pirate Roberts. In September 2013, a physical surveillance operation on Ross was set up with 10 FBI agents noting his every move. On October 2, 2013, at 2:47 p.m., Jared Deryegahayan, posing as Surus, started a conversation with DPR. To avoid connecting to his server via his personal Wi-Fi, Ross left his apartment to go to the nearest library, taking advantage of the public Wi-Fi. Unfortunately for him, the library was filled with undercover FBI agents, waiting for the right moment to arrest him. Cyber Squad 2's goal was to apprehend Ross Ulbricht before he could encrypt his laptop, which would make the data unreadable and prevent the authorities from accessing concrete evidence. Tarbell had read in DPR's conversation that a single keystroke could encrypt his entire computer in less than a second if he was at risk of being caught. At 3:14 p.m., Tarbell gave the signal. A fake couple began arguing loudly to distract Ross, who turned to look at them. An agent sitting opposite Ross seized this moment of distraction to grab his laptop and quickly move it away from him. Ross turned back a second too late and tried to reclaim his laptop but failed. He was swiftly arrested, and his confiscated laptop remained open, giving the FBI access to Silk Road with DPR's master account. Silk Road was taken offline by the end of the day, replaced by the infamous FBI notice informing users of its closure. The FBI seized over 30,000 bitcoins, worth $3.6 million at the time, which were auctioned off in June 2014 for $19 million. Today, this amount represents approximately $1.8 billion. In the following weeks, the FBI also arrested several Silk Road administrators and vendors, as well as 2 operators of Bitcoin platforms accused of facilitating Silk Road's transactions. On February 5, 2015, Ross William Ulbricht was unanimously found guilty by a jury on 7 counts, including money laundering, conspiracy to violate narcotics laws, and computer hacking. On May 29, 2015, he was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus additional terms of 5, 15, and 20 years without the possibility of parole. This harsh sentence sparked a wave of outrage, both from his family, who insisted on his innocence, and from his community, which labeled the judgment a political punishment due to Ross's ideology, even considering him a political prisoner. However, according to Australian expert Nicholas Weaver, the FBI might have used penetration commands to find the server's IP address, essentially employing hacking tools typically used by black hat hackers. If this were proven true, which remains unlikely, the FBI would have acted unlawfully, calling into question the entire judicial process against Ross. Many experts attempted to replicate the FBI's described method, but concluded that the FBI hadn't disclosed everything. In early 2016, at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, Edward Snowden suggested it was highly probable, if not certain, that the NSA was also involved in the operation to aid Ross's arrest. If this were verified, it would further undermine the legality of the entire judicial process against him. This 2-year-long investigation involved over 100 federal agents working undercover, even ordering and receiving drug shipments. This effort revealed that drugs sold on Silk Road came from vendors in more than 10 European countries, as well as the United States and Canada. Special Agent Karl Mark Force IV, the infamous knob from the DEA, despite being very close to DPR, never managed to capture him, despite several attempts to lure Ross into meeting him to help him flee the country. During Ross's trial, the DEA agent identified with him, saying, "I'm no different from him. It could have easily gone the other way." This statement turned out to be truer than it seemed. In March 2015, Karl Mark Force IV was indicated and arrested for orchestrating a series of extortions and thefts on Silk Road while posing as Knob. His partner, Secret Service agent Sean Bridges, was also arrested for transferring $350,000 in bitcoins to his personal account, which he had seized during the Chronic Pain arrest. Karl had kept the $80,000 payment for Chronic Pain's supposed murder in his personal account. Additionally, he demanded DPR send him $50,000 in bitcoins in exchange for false information about the police investigation into Silk Road. Exploiting his authority as a DEA agent, he seized over $500,000 in bitcoins, laundering them into his personal accounts rather than turning them over to the government. When Karl Mark Force IV tried to launder money, payment services froze his accounts due to suspicious activities. He used his DEA agent status to intimidate these services into unfreezing his accounts, even going so far to send an administrative subpoena from his personal email without his supervisor's knowledge. In July 2015, he pleaded guilty to money laundering, obstruction of justice, and extortion. By October 2015, he was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for abusing his position as a federal officer and was ordered to pay $337,000 in restitution to an individual from whom he had illegally seized Bitcoin under the guise of official DEA activity. Tarbell commented on the situation, saying, "It's like discovering at the end of Breaking Bad that the investigating cop was also a criminal all along. I would say that by pretending to be a cartel boss and talking to Ross, his persona took over." As for Variety Jones, Ross's mentor and advisor, the man behind DPR, he was arrested and imprisoned in Thailand in December 2015. He was likely a 55-year-old Canadian named Roger Thomas Clark. All the details you've heard are true and were known thanks to testimonies from agents and the journal Ross kept, which the police confiscated. This story of the eBay of drugs is as dramatic as a movie plot and was actually turned into a film by Tiller Russell in 2021. On January 1st, 2012, he had written, "I imagine that one day there could be a story written about my life, so it would be wise to note every detail."